please consider supporting Hugo's Desk on Patreon with $1 or more. By supporting the channel, you're helping me keep the channel alive and free. You're probably asking, but Hugo, why should I support you on Patreon? Well, I would like to believe that the content of my channel is pretty unique on YouTube and on Twitch. I'm sure that you would agree that there aren't many production tutorials out there available for free. Of course, all this comes at a price. Making high-quality videos on YouTube and very long Twitch streams with production assets, it's very time-consuming, requires a lot of work. So supporting the channel allows me to take time out of my busy schedule and make even more YouTube videos and more workshops on Twitch. You also get a bunch of cool perks, and depending on your selected pledge, you can vote on my next videos and streams on Twitch, you can take part in discussions on our private Discord and Facebook group, you can join our monthly private Skype Q&As, you even have access to the scripts and footage from my tutorials and exclusive discounts for BenQ and Action VFX. Please consider supporting Hugo's Desk. It means a lot to me to have your help. I would like to thank all my past, present, and future Patreons from the bottom of my heart. You are the reason why Hugo's Desk exists and why it's still open. Thank you so much. Without further ado, let's start the show.
There's never enough time. Okay, oh cool, look at that. So I'm gonna open up the other shot, which is shot 60, which is a really advanced shot. This was the most complex shot of the project. And it was the one that took longest because we had Houdini renders and we had a lot extra layers. So I'm gonna first open it up. And while I'm opening it up, because this takes a while and it just crashed. But I'm gonna open this up again. It's okay. It doesn't matter if it crashes, you can just open it again, you know? No one is gonna die if it crashes. So, you wanna ask any questions? Because this is gonna take a minute to open. Speak up so everyone hears.
When you do the grading, doesn't that affect the grain of the shot?
Yeah, so I only put grain at the very end, as you noticed. Only put grain at the very, very end. And I forgot to mention one thing, we denoised all the plates, because we want to get rid of all the nasty noise from the red camera. Normally, if you're working on film, what you do is you denoise just for the keying, and then you reapply the noise of the red camera on top of everything, but I didn't do that. I don't like the red noise, so I made my own grain, you know? This was a stylized project, so I didn't really need to follow the typical rules of filmmaking, you know? The grain was that node at the end. Yeah, I'll show you it again.
Processing the curves.
Oh, yeah, okay, sure. Sure, you want to see the curves, okay. See the curves of the grain, look at that. I'll disappoint you, there's no curves on the grain, it's just a bunch of sliders. It's much more boring than you think. So I'm gonna open up the shot, maybe this time it opens. Hey, it opened fine on my hotel, it should open. Okay, cool. But that's the thing, whenever you're doing it live, it never really works out as you wanted it to look. That's why most people, when they do these kind of shows, they do pre-recording videos. And you think they are doing it live. I do not do that. I can guarantee you that I'm doing it live. If anyone of the audience wants to test, they can come over like a magician. Now I'm opening the real shot. I brought my own computer, so this is the real computer. This was the computer we used for it. So now this shot is a lot more complicated than the last one. I can tell you that. Just double check if it's yeah. So this is the tower shot, which is basically the most complex shot we had on the project. So as you can see, it's quite a subtle and small script we have here. I'm just going to stop the caching. Oh, it's still loading. Just a second. Give me just a second. Any other questions while this is loading? Even with 128 gigs of RAM, it's still not enough. Well, I still have 110. It should be fine. Damn. How much RAM do I need? Like, Jesus. What a big RAM hog this machine is, you know? Anyone else has a question while I'm loading this up? You are like gobsmacked and don't have anything to say. Oops. Okay, so now it's loading. So this, as you see, all of this. This one was a bit different. It started with a matte painting. So as you can see, this is a nice matte painting. It's all in Photoshop. I bring in the Photoshop layers. This is all the layers that it has. You know, we have like the clouds only, or you know, like you get the picture. It's all split. And so this is a digital matte painting, which then gets processed into the background in a 3D-dimensional space. So I go to 3D, I bring in the camera that I got from the motion control, and this is how it looks. Not much, just a sphere with some cards. You just need to wait for it to load. It will load up, I'll promise. Don't do that. Okay, cool. Really simple, as you can see. Really basic. Just have like a sphere. It's not even high poly, you see. Didn't even bother to make it sphere-like. So a bunch of spheres, a bunch of cards there with some mountains. I didn't even bother to project them because it's a camera that just moves down. No one is ever going to see any parallax. There's no parallax there. It's so far away, there's no parallax. So once you see it through the camera perspective, this is kind of the thing you see, you know. You basically just see it really quickly on the beginning of this project. You see the sky, you see the mountain. There's a little bit of parallax between the hills, but not much needed, you know. Really simple. And that's it. And then the sky is moving ever so slightly, really subtly, you know. Just enough for it to look cool. That's how you do it. And so this goes into the 3D system. And of course, it goes without saying that all these were basically just shuffled out. We have just the clouds, for example, and then we can put it on a sphere. We then had just the right mountains on one side, you know. Then we had just the left mountains. You know, I separate them all. I'm a control freak. I like to separate everything so I can control it in terms of color correction. And then you have the foreground mountains. And then I don't remember what this is. Oh yeah, this is the matte painting that went away. I love this matte painting, and it would have worked so well. But I need to finish the shot. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick this shot up, and I'm going to do it in Twitch live. I'm going to finish this shot on Twitch to everyone to see how cool it would have looked. So that's the output of the matte painting. Then from there, we did some cheeky lens distortion. So remember what I said before. Because this is coming from 3D, this is a matte painting that I'm doing inside the 3D system, I have to apply the distortion of the lens for it to look real. So you see, this is what it does. You see, it was originally very flat, and then I applied the distortion of my lens of my camera to the matte painting so it matches the footage. Okay? You all with me? And then we have some depth of field. I always use these kind of bouquets from optical flares to do some depth of field, and that gave me this. This is the render of the matte painting. Now this render has motion blur and it has depth of field. This was really heavy. This was the heaviest thing to render. It took like 3 hours to render. So I just left it, did some ice, drank some nice iced coffee, and then I think I watched a couple of episodes, I think of The Punisher season 1 or something, and then just came back and it was done. And then I could continue working. And then, of course, we have some bloom. Of course, we wanted to do some bloom of the sky here to make it look cooler with kind of like a sense that there's like maybe some sun in the back. Although the light direction is from the front. So this is a world where there's 2 suns, but who cares? You know, it looks cool. Then we have the piece de résistance, which is the main plate. So this is the original main plate, which has the 2 towers. And as you can see, it has a lamp. And the lamp is there really for us to have some light direction, you know, so that we have... so my timer says 3 minutes. I still have a bit more time? Yeah. Okay. The audience is saying yes, they have more time. It's literally like I think you lost control of the show. The audience is in control now. Okay, go. So we have the lamp. We have the lamp there. Like I said, I am big sucker for realism. So I always use real lights as much as I can. And this is an advice for all your CG and 2D artists there. If you can shoot it for real, always go with that option first. And only when you can't shoot it for real, then go for CG or other things. You will always get better results. Oh, let me put it this way. It will always look more photoreal if it's real. so it's just a no-brainer, you know, like why am I trying to do it in CG if I can do it for real? So that's why we did, you can probably ask, oh, why didn't you do the tower in CG? Well, would it really look that good? Probably not. Would it look that photoreal? It probably would have looked that, I'm joking, I have a lot of CG artists that could have really done that really easily, but if they would have costed a fortune, it would have taken them forever to do it. So this is cheaper as well. So we have the thing here. We also pre-rendered the alpha channel. So like the other script, I'm not going to show you now, but we had a separate script just for the keying, you know. So that was, of course, rendered out. And then, just like before, we removed all the spill suppression, all the green. We did some color extension because we had some really nasty edges there. So we just a little small glitch. So we removed edge extended, and then we placed some more edge extension, and then we pre-molted where? Where was the pre-molt? Pre-molt is over there. Oh, yeah, after the fog, yes. The other thing as well that we had here, as you can see, we had the regular comp, and then we had 2 fogs and 2 lightnings as well. So this is the lightning. So you saw in the trailer there was lightning effects, right? So what we did was we had the main lighting, which was this one, and then we had, let me just do this, and this. So you see we have normal lighting, and then the lightnings of lightning strikes, you know? So we can kind of like play around with different lightings. And they were just basically done with different light setups so that it looked like it's lightning. And then during the comp, I just activate one and activate the other, and then activate one and then activate the other one. And you get this kind of lightning feeling because you have motion control, of course. So the lightnings were really simple. My clock says timer is done. Look at that. Stop. So we're going to do a few more minutes, okay? So are we good, Stefan? Hey, they're in charge, not me. I mean, I think I kind of need maybe 10 more minutes. Okay, fine. Like I said, we have the lightning passes, and of course with this build, removing all the blue. We color corrected them a bit, like because they're lightning passes, you know, when you have lightning sources, they are really desaturated. So I removed a lot of the saturation from it because when lightning happens, it's almost like a black and white thing, you know, it's like really dramatic. And so I removed some of the saturation, added the same thing, and then I have a switch. The switch, just like the word says, it switches. So it switches from one light to the other and then to the other. And so I animated the lightning effects between this switch. And then, of course, then we had a couple of more edge problems fixing, you know. We did some rotoscoping on certain parts because there were some parts that we could not do keying. And that all went in. So we have the matte painting there. And then we put in the actual thing, the actual mountain there. So, and then we did some light wrapping. Now, light wrapping is this. I'm going to show you what it is. It's basically when you have the background element spilling some light into the foreground element. So, for example, if I increase this a lot more so you can actually see it, because I don't think you can see it, not this one, sorry. I'm going to increase this one here so I can see if I can show you what I mean. Yeah, I think I'm not on a frame that you can see that. Hey, I'm going to move on because we don't have a lot of time. And then we did, that's because there's nothing bright there. So if I go a bit earlier there where we have a sky, which is bright, now we're going to see the light wrapping. So you see the light wrapping basically does this, you see? It basically spills the light that is in back into the front. And I do that on both of them. And that really blends the image together. You see, you kind of get this kind of thing. You get like this kind of diffusing happening from the background. And then you actually, I canceled that one actually, by the way. I didn't like it, I guess. I don't remember anymore. And then we also have a little bit of an edge blur just to soften these edges a bit. You see here, if you look at this piece of wood, just to soften it a little bit because it was a bit too harsh. Just to sell the idea that it's actually there, you know? So now let's go into the really big thing, which is the explosion. So the explosion, I'm not going to talk about the back explosion because the back explosion is so lame, it's really small. So I'm not going to talk about that one, I'm going to talk about the big one. So this is the big explosion. Now, we decided very early on to do it in deep compositing. If you don't know what deep compositing is when you render something from 3D that has the information of what's behind objects. That means you can actually merge layers in the correct Z position of all these layers. And the cool thing about deep compositing as well is that deep compositing gives you stuff like this. I'm going to just see here. I'm just going to show you here. So it gives you, just going to point this to there. Gives you stuff like this. If I go to the 3D system, having deep compositing gives you this. You get like a real representation in space of the whole explosion. So this means that you now you can position extra cards like fire, particles, you can position even the rats that we did in photogrammetry, you can place them here, because we know exactly in which place in 3D they exist. And so I can then place them, And so that's how we did it in deep compositing. And the explosion is really simple. We have a main explosion, which is looking like that. We then picked it up, we reformatted. Like, here's the cheeky thing. This was so heavy to render that my CG artist only managed to render 2.5K. So this is actually 2.5K. And then, hey, don't tell anyone, I just scaled it to 4K. You know, no one knows, it's a secret. you know how CG is really, really sharp when it comes from CG? So this was great. It blurred it automatically by me scaling it, you know? It just made it more real. The explosion has a lot of different parts. In fact, this is the entire explosion. So you saw the main explosion there. I'm going to show you first that one. So we scaled it to 4K. Then we added the masking. So we basically masked out the particles and the building. So you basically used an alpha channel of the building coming from deep compositing. So we can kind of layer the explosion inside the building. Then we brought in some extra stuff. I split it, just the core fire, and then split it the outer smoke. So I had all those layers separated. And then, of course, I merged them together. So we started with just the fire, then I merged a bit of the inner fire, the outer explosion, and then I put them back in. So when I put them back in, I color corrected so I can have more glow. Because you see, this is too lame for me. I like brighter things. So basically, I brought in some inner glow, as you can see here, and then I brought in some outer fire, and then I color corrected more, 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 color corrected even more, color corrected even more, and then even a little bit more color correction. Now this is, of course, at this stage is the deep, because of course there's a lot of fog, so we had to color correct the fog in. We did some edge fixing, some sharpening, some cheeky sharpening, and then a lot of glows. You see, we have an inner glow, an outer glow, an inner glow, and a fireball glow. And so what this does is this. It brings you some little hot spots inside, which basically just makes it look a bit more believable as an explosion, because you then get this kind of spread of fire, you know. I basically put some extra bloom on top, and then once that was done, we added the rest of the stuff. So this one here is just the particle of debris, which was basically pieces of wood and particles everywhere. And just like before, we comped it, we made some color correction. I made them red so it would look like it's actually from this explosion. We did a lot of color correction. We did some deep color correction, some depth color correction, pre-multiplied it, and then we merged it on top of the fire. And you see, because it's deep compositing, it just merges in the correct place, you see. In here, we have everything that was there, it's actually cut, and then it just merges seamlessly into the explosion. Then on this side, I had some more. I had the depth as well, and then the depth of field as well. Making it short, and then of course we also had the outer smoke, which was also comped on top. So we have, I'm running a really old version of PCBOK. I can't run this plugin. Sorry, I can't show you this because I've installed the latest version. This is already a year ago, so it doesn't run, this plugin. So I have to show you the render, the final render. So this is the final render with all the smoke, all the particles, everything is kind of done with an alpha channel. And it's pre-rendered, by the way. I also applied the lens distortion to the render, so it would look like it actually uses the same kind of lens distortion. On the other side also, I have the rats in photogrammetry. Remember the rats in photogrammetry? They're also inside a 3D system, and they're also being occluded by all the particles and all the fire throughout the shot. And then this all gets merged together at some point here. So you see here, we have, if you just give it a second. Anyone has any questions? Since we're really wrapping up this presentation. Any questions? So this is Nuke's 3D system, but it was rendered out as an EXR. So basically we had Nuke's 3D system with the photogrammetry rats. You know, so hopefully it doesn't crash, but if I save this and I open up this here, I'll leave it opening on the background, and maybe it will work. And then if it does work, then you get to see it. If it crashes, you don't get to see it. So I'll just leave it on the background opening. So then, of course, we already at this stage already had the fog merged on. By the way, the fog, I think I forgot to show you the fog. So the fog was here. That's the fog pass. What we did is we had to do some cleanup on the fog because, of course, the fog had some extra stuff, you know. We had, like, you could see the rig there. You could see actually the tripods of the lighting sets of the set. We also could see stuff like this. Where is it? I can't remember where it is now. Right, it's opening the other one. So we had to do a lot of cleanup on it. We also, of course, had to do a lot of color correction. We removed all the saturation. We added some shadow on the fog here because this was too bright. And then this, of course, like I said before, it was just screened on top. So this was the real shot that we had. And then we, like I said before, we put the fog on top. And you see how cooler it looks with atmospheric. Atmospheric just sells the shot, you know, it just makes it look so much cool. And this is just a screen operation with the fog on top. And then, of course, the explosion comes along. The explosion will come along here. That's when the explosion comes along. This is the pre-rendered explosion with the rats. Now, talking about the rats, we have the script of the rats. You're lucky, it actually opened. Hopefully, I can, is it still opening? Or maybe you're not lucky. Localization off, pause, see if I can, yeah, I think it's still opening. We'll come back to it. Then that was all there. What else do we have here? So then we have, of course, extra rats. So we had some rats with some sticks as well. Why not? It looks a bit stupid, but it worked really well. So we rotoed them and we comped them in. They were just like on sticks on top of the building as well. So we comped them in as well. And then at the end, of course, everything looks better with the flare. So we did two flares. We had an inner flare with a bit of a grading on the middle here so that it would be too strong. And we had an outer flare as well for the two spots of the explosion. And so what happened here was this. If you look at the final shot, you see here we have one flare that goes in here, which basically goes to that section there. And then we'll have another flare that goes to that one there. Once that's done, we then, what else do I have here? I have some reframing. We did a little bit of reframing because the client wanted to zoom in a little bit more. We then did a color correction on green, just like the client. Come on. Are you back? No? There you go. Keeps doing that. I don't know why it loses sync. I have no idea. So like I said, we had no color correction. We then put the green to match the game. We then had some vignetting. We then had some sharpening and some translation to 4K. So now this is the stage where we actually scale down everything to 4K and then put the grain. To respond to your question, there's no curves. Sorry, there's just slides. It's just a slider for the grain. So I had 1.2 of red grain, 1.4 of green grain, and 1.8 of blue grain. And then we have all these settings for minimum, mids, highlights, irregularity. This is a gizmo you can download from Nukepedia. It's from Luma Pictures. It's quite good. And then that was the final shot here. So that's how the final shot looks. Now, I'm going to just open up the rats if I can. I think this is crashed, actually, because it doesn't allow me to show anything. I wanted to show you the photogrammetry rats, but I don't think I am going to show you because this looks like it's crashed. Yes, it has crashed. Sorry about that. So that's that shot, and of course then you saw the shot already on the keynote. That's how the shot looks like when it's the end of it. I'm just going to put like this 1 to 2 because it's so heavy that it takes a while to load, and I'll leave it loading while we're talking and wrapping up this show. So any questions about this? Yes, there's a question over there. Do you want to give them the mic or?
I just bent my legs. So.
Okay, so can you speak up?
Just a general question. What kind of version control do you use? Because I come from the software world and we use Git or SVN or something like that. Do you use some kind of stuff?
Oh, I don't really do that. I have a pipeline, and the pipeline automatically makes the whole thing. So you see, it's my pipeline is actually idiot proof. So even an idiot can run it. So if I do save as here, you basically just save and you open up this and you don't do anything. The file is all written automatically for you. So that means that it automatically makes version 62. It automatically calls it shot 16. It automatically puts anything in it. I can just go in here and say, okay, open scene. And then I can just go in here, versions, and I can go back. Sorry, because I've zoomed in, I don't think this, yeah, it can go back to all like version 1 if I want to. Sorry. See, I can go all the way back. The mouse stopped working. So I can go all the way back to version 1 or all the way back to version 50 something, I think. Can't remember which So last version is 61. So I have all versions here. And they're all in the script, they are all inside my hard drive, yeah. 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 This is very common for a company. Like every visual effects company works this way. We version up a lot. Like we keep versioning up and versioning up and versioning up and versioning up to a point that sometimes we do hundreds of versions on a project. Yeah. It's always safer, you know. And especially when you're delivering something, then you know which version you delivered. Because imagine the client sees all 3 versions and they say, I like version 10. Then you can go back to version 10, you know. Any other questions? Don't be shy. I'm only here now and I'm leaving forever. No? No more questions? No? Okay, so I'm still here the whole day. If you want to ask questions, don't be shy. I'm very approachable. You can just go to you just can come over me and ask me outside, or I'm now going to go and have lunch. I'm going to go to the trailer outside and just have some lunch. So, and of course, after I pack. Don't really be shy. You can approach me and talk to me. I'll be here until the end of the day, until the end of the show. I still want to see the next presenters. I've tried to see almost everything here. I hope I've managed. So yeah, ask me anything really. Or you can always contact me on social media. You can always try to contact me on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. I'll answer if I can. Usually I get too many requests on those kind of platforms, but I would probably say that LinkedIn is probably the best way to contact me. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this session. Hope it was, I hope it was informative for you. Like even though you don't know Nuke, hope it was it informative for everyone here? Excellent. So thank you so much for the time you took today on a Sunday to be here. Okay. Thank you.